Welcome back to the Weekend Sugar. On this week's episode, we are celebrating the Weekend Sugar hitting 100 freaking subscribers! Yay! Thank you so much to the 100 of you who have supported my channel by subscribing to it. Yes. And because of that, we are baking something to celebrate this momentous event. This was actually requested by Janice Plays Games about 3 months ago, and I'm only baking it now. She requested that we make a rainbow cake, and because it's probably the right time to do this, let's bake a rainbow cake. Let's get started. So the first problem that I encountered, that's why I also didn't really want to make this rainbow cake, is that I have limited resources. I only have 3 8-inch tins, and since we're making 6 layers of rainbow cake, then we need 6 tins. So what we're going to do is to bake our vanilla cake half at a time. So we are going to do first the first bottom layers, which are in the colors purple, blue, and green. So let's set it aside and let's get in our bowls. I have 3 bowls over here, and I'm gonna add 1.5 tablespoons of milk on each bowl. Then I'm gonna begin mixing my colors in. I do not have an exact measurement of the amount of food color that I used, but the main tip that I can give you is to go slow with it. We can build up the colors later on when we add in our vanilla cake batter. So at this stage, just add in the color that you would want with just the milk. So the next thing that we need to do is to set us aside and make the vanilla cake batter. The best thing about this vanilla cake batter is that it's really moist, soft, and fluffy. So it just brings out the perfect balance in your rainbow cake. So the first thing that we need to do is to beat our butter until it's soft and fluffy. And once it reaches that stage, we are going to add in our eggs, 1 egg at a time, and just mix it at low speed. And then we are going to beat in our sugar, medium to high speed, for about 30 seconds to a minute. Then lastly, we are going to add our self-raising flour. I have a homemade self-raising flour recipe. I will leave the link to that on the description down below. So we are going to start mixing this at low speed and build it up at medium to high speed for about 30 seconds until all of our flour has been mixed into the rest of our batter. Let's give this a good mix with our spatula just to make sure we get all the pips and bobs out there in there. And it's time to measure the full amount of our cake batter because we are dividing this into 3, so we want to make sure that each tin has the same exact amount of butter. If you don't have a scale, which I recommend that you buy if you really are into baking, you can use a cup measurement to divide your batter equally into each 3 tin. So now we begin by scooping it into our respective bowls. I forgot the exact amount of each tin that each vanilla batter has in each tin, but I think it rounded up to about 450 grams each. And once you are through with that, you're now going to mix them together. Make sure to fold them, not stir them, because you don't want to deflate the air that is in your vanilla cake batter. So by this point, you can add more of your food color as you see fit. Just take note that basically the color that your vanilla cake batter has right now is how it would look like once your cake has baked. So take note of that. Then we're going to transfer it into our cake tins that I have buttered and floured, and also lay down a piece of parchment paper at the bottom so we can remove it quite easily. So level out your cakes on your tins and then give them a good tap to make sure that everything is nice and level. We are going to bake our cakes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 25 to 30 minutes. And once they're done cooking, just get a bit of a knife or a spatula and loosen up the sides. So we are gonna leave them to cool. While they're cooling, we will make the next 3 layers of our rainbow cake in the colors yellow, orange, and red. I'm not gonna show you the whole process again. I just did the same process all over again, but this time's for this color. And right now I'm just mixing them up together. And by now, the other half of your cake is already cooled down. So take out your tins and put parchment all over it again and butter up and flour the sides so that we can reuse it for this next 3 layers. And let's bake that again at the same temperature at the same time. And while that's baking, let's make our Swiss meringue buttercream. So I have here my egg whites and my sugar in my stand mixer bowl, and I'm just gonna use a double boiler method, meaning I have a pot of simmering water and I'm just gonna put my bowl on top of it, and then with my whisk my sugar and egg white mixture together. I don't want to stop mixing because I don't want my egg whites to cook, and I also want to keep on mixing so that my sugar will dissolve. So this will take about 5 minutes or until your sugar completely dissolves. So you'll know that your sugar is dissolved if you dip your fingers into that bowl, and if you don't feel any sugar granules in between your fingers, then it means that all your sugar is dissolved and we are ready to take it out and put it back into our stand mixer. Now we need to beat our meringue at a high speed, and this will take about 5 minutes, and you'll know that it's done when it's on stiff peaks. You know that it's on stiff peaks if it points a stiff peak at the top of your meringue, or once you tip your bowl over, nothing falls off of your bowl. Now the next step and the final step in making our Swiss meringue buttercream is to add in our butter. And this is very crucial, and it's very important to take this nice and slow. So turn up your mixer into low speed, and we are going to add our softened butter at 1 teaspoon at a time. Again, this is very important because you do not want to shock your meringue by dumping all your butter in there. So it's very important to let your meringue be accustomed to your butter, so add it a teaspoon at a time. And once you've added all your butter in them, let it continue to mix at a low speed until it will look like a buttercream. You will know that it will look like a buttercream because it will be stiff, it will be glossy, and it will be white. So it's very important to have patience when you're making your Swiss meringue buttercream right here. So take it nice and slow, and you're only gonna turn it up to high speed once it reaches the consistency of a buttercream, and you'll only whip it for about 1 minute at high speed and your meringue. And now it's time to trim and level and fill our cakes. So all my layers have cooled down. They're all looking so nice and pretty with those beautiful colors popping out. I have here what they call a cake leveler, and it's the best tool in leveling cakes. I do not know how to use a serrated knife. I gave up on that. It's so hard to do, and I bought this for only 500 pesos. This is the nicest investment that you could have if you are into baking cakes. So I recommend that you buy this instrument. So we're gonna trim the tops of our cake just to level them all out. Make sure that all your layers have the same height, okay? So for all those cake scraps, do not throw them away. Keep them in a Ziploc bag and put them in the freezer, and I'll show you next time how to make rainbow cake milkshake out of those cake scraps. Now, here are all our beautiful layers. I stuck them all up to see if they're all balancing out, and we are ready to fill them up. So I have here the Swiss meringue buttercream that I made earlier, and I transferred a little bit of them in a small bowl so that I do not contaminate the rest of my buttercream. So I have here my coaster clover from my Japan Home Center haul, if you've watched that, and I'm gonna put that on top of my rolling board just to hold my cake board in place. And on my cake board, I'm gonna put a little bit of my buttercream to hold my first layer in place. So our rainbow cake will begin with the purple color, then the blue, then the green, then the yellow, then the orange, then the red. So let's start with our purple layer. So let's start filling them up. I'm putting a bit of buttercream in there. I don't want to put too much because our cake might topple over. So just enough to cover the entirety of the cake and to give it a nice filling. So in this process, take as much time as you need. Do not rush this. I mean, I've only baked a handful of cakes, and it really does take practice and patience when you're making cake. So do not be discouraged when you make a mistake. Just keep on going, because what's important is that your cake tastes good and that you end up with a beautiful product at the end of the day. So I'm gonna add more buttercream to give it more filling. So this time you really just have to do this by eye, depending on how much filling you want in your cakes. Then I'm gonna put my next layer, making sure that it's in line with my bottom layer, and then I'm gonna do the same process all over again for all the layers. There we go. Now it's time to do the crumb coat. Crumb coat is basically putting a thin layer of buttercream all over your cake to lock in all the crumbs before you make your final coat. So after we do the crumb coat, we are gonna pop this in our fridge for about 30 minutes just so that our crumb coat will harden up, and then we can do the final layer. After 30 minutes of chilling in the fridge, it's now time to do the final coating. What I usually do here is to apply a thick layer of buttercream all over my cake, just like so. And then once I've covered all my cake with the thick layer of buttercream, now I'm gonna take my cake scraper and position it at a 90-degree angle on my cake, and I'm gonna spin my rolling board to smoothen out all the sides of my cake. I'm not really good at this, but I'm trying my best, and hopefully I will be better at this. So once you're satisfied with how your cake looks at this point, it's now time to do the watercolor design part of our buttercream. So I mix in some color into my buttercream. They're in colors red, orange, yellow, blue, green, and purple, and I'm just gonna put dollops of it all over my cake. Now taking my cake scraper again, I'm just gonna scrape the sides of my cake until I create this very watercolor effect all over the sides of my cake. So I decided to add more colors to cover the entirety of my cake. So just be as creative as you can by this point. Do what you want to do. Basically, this will not be a very clean looking cake. It's like a very rustic, very messy looking cake, but I think that it turned out really great. And then with just of my rainbow cake scrappings, I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of that all over the tops of my cake. And our rainbow cake is finally done. Now for the final test. Let's take a slice of our rainbow cake. And look at the beautiful, beautiful layers. Oh my god, making this cake is one of the most satisfying things ever. It definitely takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of effort, but once you succeed in it, you maybe can call yourself a baker now. So go on ahead and try out this rainbow cake. I leave all the recipes, all information on my blog, weekandsugar.com. I leave a link on the description down below. Again, I would like to say thank you so much for all of you who have subscribed to The Weekend Sugar. If you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you. I'm so happy. And if you have any requests, don't forget to comment it down below. And I'll see you next time. Bye!